Shalom. I want to talk about this week's Torah portion, which is Chukat. It is Numbers 19:1 through 22:1. The Haftarah is Judges 11:1 through 33. And the New Covenant portion is John 3:10 through 21. There's a lot of stories here. In this portion, the story of the red heifer, the water from the rock, Edom denying passage to Israel, Aaron being gathered to his people, Nehushtan, the snake on a pole, the journey to Moab, and the defeat of Sihon and Og. I want to start right in chapter 19, verse 1. It says, Adonai spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "This is the statute of the Torah, which Adonai commanded, saying, Speak to Bnei Israel, that they bring to you a flawless red heifer on which there is no blemish, and on which has never been a yoke." And then God went on to say that they should slaughter this red heifer and burn it and use the ashes. And if we go to verse 9, it says, "A clean man is to gather up the ashes of the heifer and put them in a clean place outside the camp. They are to be used for the community of Bnei Israel to use as water of purification from sin." So these ashes of the red heifer were to be used as part of the purification ceremony for anybody who had become unclean by a dead body. This was their key to enter into the temple. So it was very important. In September of 2022, 5 red heifers arrived in Israel from Texas, and even today they are being held in Shiloh. Not all of them are still kosher, but Hamas said that this was one of the reasons they attacked Israel, because they knew that if Israel was receiving these red heifers, it was moving forward their thoughts toward the third temple, and that if there was going to be a third temple built, it was going to have an effect on the Temple Mount and the Dome of the Rock. And so this was one of their excuses for attacking Israel on October 7th. I want to move on to chapter 20 in Numbers, the water from the rock. And the first thing we see in verse 1 is that Miriam died. But after that, in verse 2, it says there was no water for the community, so they assembled against Moses and Aaron. The people quarreled with Moses, saying, "If only we had died when our brothers died before Adonai. Now, why have you brought the community of Adonai into this wilderness for us and our livestock to die here? Why have you brought us from Egypt to bring us to this evil place, a place without grain, fig, grapevine, or pomegranate, and there's no water to drink?" So we know that we have heard in these past parashot that we have been reading, the children of Israel going again and again with the complaints and the grumbling about no water, no food. And here they specifically say there's no grain, fig, grapevine, or pomegranate, which I thought was interesting, because when we read the parasha about the spies, it said they brought back from the land of Israel specifically grapes and pomegranates and figs. It goes on in verse 6 and says, "So Moses and Aaron went from before the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces. Then the glory of Adonai appeared to them. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, 'Take the staff and gather the assembly, you and your brother Aaron. Speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will give out its water. You will bring out water from the rock, and you will give the community something to drink along with their livestock.'" In verse 10, Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly in front of the rock, and he said, "Listen now, you rebels. Must we bring you water from this rock?" Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with the staff. Water gushed out, and the community and its livestock drank. But Adonai said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust in me, so as to esteem me as holy in the eyes of Bnei Israel, therefore you will not bring this assembly into the land that I have given to them." So that we see that Aaron and Moses received a really harsh punishment of not being able to go into the promised land because they did not treat God as holy in front of the children of Israel. I want to move on to the next passage when Edom would not let the children of Israel go through their land on their way to the promised land. And one of the sentences I really love in this particular piece is we're still in Numbers chapter 20, but in verse 17, it says, "We will travel on the king's highway. We will not deviate to the right or left until we have passed through your territory." And when I read these words, it just made me think about our own journey, that we are on the king's highway, on our way to our home, the promised land, and that we are not supposed to turn not to the right and to the left, but we keep our eyes on the highway, the king's highway, which is in front of us to lead us safely home. We go on to the next portion, which was still in chapter 20, verse 24. Adonai said to Moses and Aaron will be gathered to his people. Also, this is so very important because God doesn't just say that Aaron's going to die. He said Aaron is going to be gathered to his people. And I think this gives us such hope because this stays in front of me all the time, my desire to see those who went in front of me and to be with them again, and the incredible reunion that we are going to have in heaven with Yeshua the Lamb and with those who went before us. It says in chapter 20, verse 28, Moses removed Aaron's garments and placed them on Eleazar, his son. So Eleazar became the chief priest. I want to end today with the last story, not the last story in the portion, but about Nehushtan, the snake on the pole. And it says in verse 4, chapter 21, verse 4, the spirit of the people became impatient along the way. The people spoke against God and Moses. Why have you brought us from Egypt to die in the wilderness? Because there is no bread, no water, and our very spirits detest the despicable food. So Adonai sent poisonous serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many of the people of Israel died. The people came to Moses and said, we sinned when we spoke against Adonai and you. Pray to Adonai for us, that he may take away the snakes. So Moses prayed for the people. Adonai said to Moses, make yourself a fiery snake and put it on a pole. Whenever anyone who has been bitten will look at it, he will live. So Moses made a bronze snake and put it on a pole. And it happened that whenever a snake bit anyone and he looked at the bronze snake, he lived. This portion is so important because it points to the future. It points to what the Messiah would be like for us. And I want to go to the New Covenant portion and look in John chapter 3. And this is the story of Nicodemus coming to Yeshua at night to ask him questions that he wanted to know. And it says in John 3, Yeshua tells this story starting in verse 14. Just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the desert, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, so that whoever believes in him may have eternal life. So Yeshua was telling Nicodemus, what happened in the desert was just a picture of this serpent up on this pole, that anybody who looked at him would be healed. And the same would be with the Messiah, that the one who looks on him and calls out to him for healing and salvation, he would have eternal life. I bless you with those words today. Have a great day.